Charlie Brown is ready to kick at the football again. Make sure we're actually there. Make sure there's actually people. Oh, 2 people. Hello, you 2 people. All right. We do the typical. Popping out the chat. Moving the chat to screen 1. Doing function F11 on screen 1 to move that over here, to move chat over there, to make the sizing better, and to invite you folks to go ahead and chat to me, because it seems to be, with increasing regularity, a large part of the point of these videos. I do this for myself, but I also do it for you because there is increased interest. And I am in the place. I am almost always doing what people are really going to want to do a few months from now. I am not all that special. I am just a little bit more, not more. I'm just sensitive. Others are sensitive exactly like me. I'm sensitive and equipped with 50 years of technical knowledge and lots of mistakes and landing on my back from kicking at the football. So this is the next try of kicking at the football. So remind everyone why this is worth it. Why what this video series is doing is worth it. We are always on some sort of hardware. That hardware these days is very frequently Windows hardware. It's a good deal. It's a good value for the money. There's no reason not to. Things are becoming less proprietary these days because operating systems exist at such a low level that they can mitigate between different concurrent other operating systems, such as Windows and such as Linux. Now, when one of them is Linux, you can use one of Linux's wonderful tricks of having Linux containers. And so you can have additional Linux containers, and these work as a sort of playground. And having those playgrounds is very much worth it, because you can try different things and you can experiment and you can learn without messing up these, what you would call, I guess, the host operating systems in these cases. You don't want to mess up this. You don't want to mess up this. You kind of keep them in this pristine condition, and you only do things that can risk messing up this. And that's the prize. That's what we're going after here, and it's very much worth it. There are various ways to go about it, but this, I think, is currently the best because you get to work on some really great hardware. You get to stay compatible with the world, and you get to transition yourself over to Linux. Full screen terminal Linux, that is. Okay, so I've had challenges, so I'm going to do this until it's done. Don't give up. Show the nice folks your Charlie Brown routine. Kick at the football and end up on your back as many times as it takes, but don't be tricked. Intelligently adjust your technique. There still seems to be some confusion about LXD versus Docker, getting over just the thought stuff of what's going on. So I'm going to clarify that. And I'm going to show how Canonical, the makers of Ubuntu, are actually the project lead. I thought it was the Linux Foundation. It is not. That is a recent discovery of mine. So we start out with the fact that choose your release. It's going to be one of these canonical ones. There it is. Container virtualization. We put that right after my blog. This shows you the adventure I'm on. This is accumulating up more and more. My blog's starting to take on a lot of, storytelling. So container virtualization tools. linuxcontainers.org is the umbrella project behind LXD, LXC, and LXCFS. The goal is to offer a distro and vendor-neutral environment for the development of Linux container technologies. In other words, to accomplish this, without it being tied to vendors in particular. That's really important. It can't be tied to a particular vendor. No money-making endeavor. Now, Canonical themselves is a for-profit company, so I have some questions there, but we'll forge ahead. I'm not going to read it all exactly. I just will tell you that there's an LXD technology, which is what we're focusing on, but it's all built on an LXC technology, which is the containers. This is the containers. This is the daemon, the service that runs it all. So this is the management piece. This is kind of the file format piece. And apparently there's a file system. And as we scroll down, we will see that the project is sponsored by Canonical Limited. That is the company that creates Ubuntu. So this is coming from the people who create Ubuntu, which is also the location that the Snap Store is coming from. And I guess I'll talk about that in a moment because that's coming right up. So linuxcontainers.org looks very official. This is probably why I thought it was the Linux Foundation, but it's not. It's Canonical. So all the tutorials, why have I been failing? All the tutorials have been under 18.04, so downgrade my Linux to 18.04, done. So just to show you that, lsb_release --all. I am on currently Ubuntu 18.04.6 long-term service release, codenamed Bionic. I used to be on 20.04. This is 2 versions back now, which is an extremely well-known and stable version. And it's where all the tutorials, it's what all the tutorials on this topic use. So it's what I shall use too. It appears there is no Snap Store requirements on this version. Snap Store is another Canonical initiative to make, container installs easy. To make installs easy. I take the word containers out. That makes it confusing. The fact that they're using container technology, it's just an alternative way to make installing software easy. So, where have I been going wrong? Most evidence points to the lack of something called systemd as the culprit. Systemd is a monolithic system manager in most versions of Linux today, but not under the Linuxes that get installed under the Windows Subsystem for Linux. So the first step is to confirm that LXD actually does require systemd, and I already did that. I went over here and I went to an FAQ, and this is going to be another one of the Canonical pages, but this is the FAQ from Canonical, and I look at that for systemd, and then I find various entries where they show you how to debug things. I might actually end up using that in this video, but the fact that systemd shows up as one of the things that's wrong in the FAQ for not running makes it extremely indicative that I'm on the right track in making sure that systemd is running. So that was that FAQ we were looking at. So I figured that testing how to see if systemd was running was one of the important things. And this is how to check if systemd is running. There's a bunch of methods. Here's one of them. You run this command, and if systemd is running, you see systemd printed out. If not, you see init printed out. So we go over here, we run that. Init, systemd is not running. So even though I'm on 18.04, this needs to change to the word systemd when I run that command, or else sudo lxd init is unlikely to work. There is additional evidence that the network context is causing issues. So what I'm running into are known problems and various approaches. And so some of the approaches you saw me go through earlier were what I might call, well, first, before I even show you the tutorials to make it work right, show what if there was no Windows Subsystem for Linux in the picture, what a tutorial looks like if it were just getting it running. And I found this wonderful tutorial here, managing containers with LXD. It goes back to 2017. See that? 2017. Things were this simple going back many years. And it talks about LXD and Docker. By the way, I should just say that the difference between LXD and Docker is that Docker is for applications. LXD is for a full system. So when I talk about these playgrounds, these are full system playgrounds. Full system. Not just app. Right, so that's the real main difference. You know, you get to have a full kind of, you know, system experience here, and not just the isolation of an app for a snap store install, right? So Docker is to create ecosystems of application installs, and LXD is to just give you new copies of Linux you can play around with. So this tutorial here just so it shows you, you know, apt-get install LXD, apt-get install the ZFS utils, and then LXD init, and then creating a container. See how easy it's supposed to be? LXD launch a container, you know, and launch a command shell in this container. Create a container but not launch it. Okay, so those are variations, but you can see the basics of getting it going are easy peasy, easy peasy. And that's what I feel like I'm missing out on. It's really not easy peasy under Windows Subsystem for Linux. So I go to, you know, some of the dirty solutions that were shown early on, right? That would be like this one, where it's like how to run LXD containers in WSL. Here's your prerequisites. Here are the problems that are encountered. Here's a bunch of stuff. Here's a bunch of more stuff. Here's like, you know, all this crazy stuff that it's not that crazy because I'm going to be doing the equivalent of this in an easier way. Here's a proxy you can get to spin it yourself, and you know, putting a web server on it to test it. Okay, so it was a little bit beyond what I really wanted to do. This is not the kind of stuff I like to do, installing Engine X just to test if it's working. It's way overkill. So even though people had these dirty solutions, I looked for a cleaner solution. These itches are being scratched by other people. Here's one of them. It was a little bit cleaner, WSL2 plus LXD. Let's have some fun too. So they walk you through it. And this could work. This is one of the approaches I actually am quite drawn to. Update your rc.d, enable it, you know. Your interface is LXDBRO instead of ETH0. So this looks like it's on the right track, and I was very appealed to this. This video almost became the following of this particular tutorial, but you can see it goes on a bit. It's pretty technical, and this feels like rabbit hole. This feels like going deep into the rabbit hole. And I asked myself, shouldn't there have been someone scratching this itch before? I cannot be the first person to have these issues. This is such a big prize. It's so truly mainstream. It's like the unboxing of the Raspberry Pi. Everyone wants to be here. Everyone wants an easy way off of Windows and onto Linux, full screen terminal Linux. You might not know it yet, but intuitively, somewhere inside of you, you know you're done with being rendered obsolete by the next version of a piece of software. Your Atom text editor going away because Microsoft bought GitHub and they're not going to keep 2 copies of an Electron-based text editor. There's just so many things that make it time to get onto full screen timeless Linux terminal. It might sound weird today, but it's not going to sound weird tomorrow. So other people are scratching this itch. I didn't invent this. So I went looking and I found a GitHub project called WSL-Distro. And listen to this. Distro D is a systemd based meta distro for WSL2 that allows you to install Ubuntu, Arch Linux, Gentoo, and many other distros with systemd in a minute, or to make your current distro run systemd. Distro D also provides built-in auto start feature and port forwarding services. That's that proxy stuff. This allows you to start systemd managed services such as SSH on Windows startup and make it accessible from outside Windows. This is all the right words. This is all the right keywords. This sings to me like music. This is someone who really feels the same pain I do and has had the technical savvy to scratch this particular itch. With Distro D, you can run systemd in WSL. So I anticipate after installing this, I will actually be able to do the sudo lxd init command and have it succeed. You can install a new distro with systemd running, or you can make your current distro run systemd. I'm going to do the second option because I just went through this work of getting 18.04, as the current Ubuntu that I'm running. You can also install any image available from linuxcontainers.org. And they're continuously testing. It sounds like they have some clout behind it. So you look at when the last updates were. Last updates were 5 months ago. That might sound like a long time ago, but that means there hasn't been any problems in 5 months. It's stabilized a bit. It's a recent problem. It's a recent itch people had. And what they put out has not needed updates in 5 months. This is actually very promising, ladies and gentlemen. Even though I hate introducing another dependency, these things are just a holding pattern. So that's where we begin. This is a holding pattern. The same way I'm on Windows 10, but telling people on Windows 11 to WSL install, I'm biting the bullet and chasing the rabbit for benefit today. It'll come into better shape tomorrow. Guaranteed. Hi, I use Ubuntu 20.04 in VirtualBox. I can or can't share folders with the host Windows. Yeah, so VirtualBox, another technology bought by Oracle. VirtualBox was big and was taking over the world and could have been this thing for the world, but Oracle bought it, and now it's tarnished. And VirtualBox would not really have been a product like Windows Subsystem for Linux, because it's not working at this deep incorporated level right over the hypervisor. You have to actually run it like a software app. VirtualBox is running kind of like at this level. And that makes it things such as fragile. And, other things like, this is telling you it's going to make it work as if it were booting, right? You boot Windows and your Linux system is fully booted and able to start running Linux system services at Windows startup. And then you can access it from outside of the world of Windows easily. This kind of language is actually saying not fragile, and not so tightly coupled to the world of Windows that you need an application, a Windows application running. All the knowledge and know-how from this approach is going to be transferable to a pure Linux world. There is no Windows virtual machine technology, dependencies in the picture. VirtualBox was once cool. It was an alternative to VMware. But today, it is just another virtual machine technology that's inferior to containers. Not quite as good of a stepping stone to Windows independence. I mean, I'm glad you're doing it. It is cool. Anything you can do to get Ubuntu experience when you're on Windows is good. So we continue here. Option 1 is when you install a new distro. We're not going to be doing that because we already have a distro installed. So we go right to option 2. Make your current distro run systemd. And you can see we already have a before and after. It's not running systemd. And I haven't done this before experimentally. You're joining me as I'm doing it for the first time. So you're going to see Charlie Brown kick at this football. Download and run the latest installer script, and they're failing to tell you your CD things. So, very often you want to make sure you're CD'd to home when you start this. It's going to plop that file into your home location. We are, so that's good. Curl is basically built into every distro of Linux as a command. You probably don't need to get curl. Let's take a look. Yeah, we don't. So now we do an ls, and in addition to my all script that I did in the GitHub directory I made, there is this install.sh file there. And I suppose I trust this. We make the install file executable. That chmod makes that file executable. And then you run it as sysadmin. Before we run it, we will vim install.sh to see what it's doing. It's making a directory and opt. This is what it's doing. You can look at it first. You can inspect what it's doing. I think this is fine. I don't think this is nefarious. So we run it. Yeah, no errors. That's good. Installation complete. The script installs distro-d but does not enable it yet. So now you have to enable distro-d in your distro. You have two options. If you want to automatically start your distro on Windows startup, enable distro-d by the following command. And you see the /, so that's definitely going to be from Linux side. Otherwise, you can enable it just once. So I'm going to enable it every time Windows starts on Windows boot. That sounds good. I like that. Now it needs root permission, so we need a sudo. Enabling automatic startup service of distro-d. UAC dialog will appear because scheduling a task requires the admin privilege. Please hit enter to proceed. I think I hit enter. Yes. Please enter and run as password for... Oh, interesting. That is my Windows username, and you see backslashes, so you know you're in Windows context. Think. I believe I got it. It seems the task has been scheduled successfully. Oh, it seems the task has not been scheduled successfully. You may have typed the wrong password, or you may not have the net. Do you want to retry? Yes, I'll retry. Now we're going to have to function F11. I don't think I have it. I will probably just not run it when I start it. Control C. caught in a loop, aren't I? No, I don't want to retry. PowerShell failed, exit status. So we're going to choose the other option, which is just a one-time thing. It probably doesn't need admin ability to do it on a one-time basis. Needs the root permission, so we have to sudo that. That's fine. There's two admin level permissions. There's admin level permissions under Linux, which I remember I just said it. And then there's admin level permission under Windows, which requires remembering your Windows password, which I don't think I do. So it's enabled, and now we can go back into this thing which has the test for whether, oh, it still says init. That's not right. That should say systemd. Ugh. You can run enable with start Windows if you want to restart later, right? Okay, that's fine. Restart your distro. And this gets done. See that WSL command? That means it's going to be from like a PowerShell. So we do that over here. We bring up a PowerShell. We type that command in. When you get tired at the end of a long day is when you start making mistakes. After reopening, your shell runs in a systemd session. Does it? Yeah, it does. Oh my goodness, it does. It does. Look at that. Wow. Wow. So step one accomplished. Whew. Charlie Brown keeps kicking at that football until it works. All right, you can send feedback if you like. I have no idea who's like following along. Is it like multiple people, no people? It doesn't matter. Yeah, we got some people following along. All right, so this is really, really exciting for me to have systemd now, according to a test completely independent of the other things I'm doing, showing as what's, system services are running under. We can now proceed, I believe, oh my God. What I'm tempted to do right now is sudo lxd init, but it might not even be on my machine yet. And certainly the ZFS file system is not yet, which I still have some hopes. Now my sorry, I stopped thinking in English sometimes. My journal had quit out. But we're making some good progress here. So this actually might be successful. And this is where we left off. Now that I did a save, I actually want to remove journal It's .journal. It's that swap file is still going to be quite stubborn now. Now I can go back in, go to where I left off, and the swap file is not going to be stubbornly sitting there. Whew, okay. Think. Now's when we start following more traditional tutorials. Now's when we do what should be done in most situations when setting up this stuff. This is one of the early, remember this is a 2017 one that had most stuff correct. I was very impressed by it. They have you doing the apt-get install LXD before you apt-get install ZFS-utils, but I think I want to get ZFS-utils onto my machine first. And I don't need that strange header stuff anymore either. Now this is the old school way of doing it, and it's not using super user. So I change it to the new way of doing it and using super user. And so this just puts the zettabyte file system from Sun Microsystems here in the hope that it'll be offered as an option when I do the LXD init. I think it will because I'm on 18.04 and that's the way it was back in those days. Now this is sudo apt install LXD, so I'm not even going to bother typing that. Clear sudo apt install LXD. Oh, it's already there. That's great. Nice. See, already included with it. This is what gave me the impression that it was from the actual Linux authorities, the Linux governance, linux.org, but it's not. It's from Canonical, and Canonical pre-bundles their stuff with their stuff, so it's understandable. Sudo LXD init, maybe we're there. Sudo LXD init. We have systemd running. Look, okay, the wizard is starting. Would you like to use clustering? The default is no, I keep that. Do you want to configure a new storage pool? The default is yes, I keep that. Name of the storage pool, I'll keep the default. No ZFS file system option, but we'll take the default because I've been at this for so long, I don't really care anymore. I just want LXD running. 50 gigabyte loopback device. Maybe, I guess I keep the default. It's not necessarily going to make it that big. You know what? I don't think so. I think I'll go with 10. I just can't let it be bigger than the size I know is available on my machine. Default is no for this MAAS server. New local network bridge. Now that's very interesting. I'm going to say no because I already have a network bridge. Existing bridge, yeah, we'll use an existing bridge. ETH0, the standard for it. Would you like LXD available over the network? The default is no. Oh, available over the network. No, I'm going to take no. Outbound request should work fine. Would you like stale cached image? Default. YAML, default. Okay, well, it did not fail. We got through the wizard successfully. That is a big deal. I'll keep a record of what my options were. I put that over here. And what you do when you do that is you indent it a bit so that when it does its markdown stuff, it will treat it as code. And now we can do the next things. Creating containers. All containers in LXD are created from images. You can use images from local and remote repositories. Let's view a list of available repositories. It should just be your own, based off of your own thing. But I guess I'll see if I get that same list. Look at that. Oh my goodness, right? This is working. This is very likely to to be exactly what I want it to be. This is probably making contact with a football, my friends. Oh, oof. For just trying out LXD, a local repository is fine. We'll launch Ubuntu 16.04 in a container. LXC launch and then a name of one of your containers. This is probably arbitrary, but this is anything but arbitrary. But it's a version of Ubuntu with a colon something. I thought that would be a WSL name, but honestly, LXC and LXD don't really know about your names. Although this interface here is using the LXC interface, the command line LXC interfaces. So I may actually switch over, not to this one, that's the ugly one. This is the more optimistic one, but still quite ugly. And then, oh, this is the distro D. I did not need a distro D. I might end up using it still, okay? But it seems to me that, oh, I did use it. I used it to enable System D. I absolutely did use it. I just ran a script from within my existing distro. Yeah. All right. So this is to explain to you what snap was and why we're not using it. And then this is choosing your release. And the snap interface for choosing your release, that doesn't apply at all. What I need to do now is do the equivalent, the LXD intro. I need the most basic LXD intro. And I think that's still that Linux containers thing that I had there from before, getting started. It shows you this stuff. Hey, there. LXC, it's still using LXC, even though it's an LXD intro. So I guess that introduction was fine. And they name it. So I guess without further ado, LXC launch Ubuntu : 18.04 space U 1804. That'll be my name for it. Error. Oh, permission denied. That's fine. Sudo. Oh, look at that. It's creating the container. Retrieving image. Root FS. This is big. This is big. This is exciting, exciting, exciting stuff. We only simply had to, well, simply, I had to revert to 18.04. I'm no longer on the latest version of Ubuntu, the latest long-term service release, LTS. I am on a couple of years ago, but it's fine because of average distribution curves. Really, being on the very latest is unwise for many reasons. Starting U1804? Does that mean this is init now? Does it mean it's running? So we need to see the next step. Once you start such a thing, which is what's done here in this command, to start your first container, try, yeah, okay, creating it, LXC launch. I guess we launch it with a name. It has been created, but it has not been launched. They insist you watch the video. They don't have it just written out as a tutorial, but I can guess it, right? Because they're saying, you know, this was sudo LXD launch. Well, it did launch. It created it and it started it. So it's probably running somewhere where you can like log into it or something. This is the snapd instructions. We're not particularly interested in that. Initial configuration, these should be the same. That creates the wizard process. Interactive setup options, it explains what those choices were. Launch an instance. Use out to launch an instance. We did that. Specify the image that you want to launch. Launch a container. Launch a container. Launch an image. Launch a container. Manage instances. List instances. Let's take a look at the listed instance, LXC list, right? LXC list. Oh, sudo. I should just promote myself to super user. Look at it. Look at that. It's running. It's running. It's just a matter of how to connect into it. So that's our next thing, just how to connect into it. And if I do that, I will consider this a massively successful session. See that type persistent? That's a big reason to use LXC/LXD, because everything you do persists. It hangs around. These are real little operating systems here. This persists. This is real, just as if, you know, just as if it were your original native one. It's just like it were this one in so many ways. Now I just need like the tutorial stuff on how to get into it. Yeah. All right. But like how to get into it, how to change your terminal to be connected to that. View profiles. Profile show, create an empty profile. This is nuts. Run commands. You can run commands from an instance. That, oh, get shell access. There we are. There it is. It's to start a shell in your container. To run commands directly in the container, enter the following command. So we don't want to really run commands inside the container. We just want shell access. Assume that your container has the bin bash command. Oh, log on to a virtual machine. LXC console VM name. There it is. Okay, we need before and after. Look carefully. Heal us at Lunderwand. That's where we are. Heal us at Lunderwand is where we are. So what we're learning is LXC console U1804. And it should be sudo again. To detach from the console, press Control A and then Q. All right, we've got a blinking cursor. Maybe I hit enter. There it is, log in. Oh, I don't know, does it use the same username as we do before? Heal us. That's interesting. The initial user. Control A, Q will detach. Okay, so this is LXD console username and default username. LXD console default username password. LXC console default username password. And this is 2015. That does not seem promising. Oh, you have to do it initially. Okay. So LXC execute first using bin bash, and then the username that you want to use. Control AQ. That brings us back. Clear. Sudo su. Get it done with. All right. Error not found. Start your first container. Try LXC launch. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Except the username issue is the username is an issue. No, that's now I'm just getting tired. Ugh. Starting accurate gecko. Container name is accurate gecko. Okay, so it apparently, I have 2 containers now. And this is interesting because it shows us now how easy it is to have multiple ones. I'm going to be able to create and delete. This is whole new Linux systems, ladies and gentlemen. This is like having brand new full performance, just like your top level, because hypervisor, all, operating systems made equal. This is great. This is wonderful. Even though I made a second one by accident, it's just now a matter of figuring out how to get into these silly things. Let's see if there's any feedback coming in from the gang. Let's see if there's anyone actually watching. Yeah, there's people tuning in and out. 2 likes already. Thank you, everyone. This is like unboxing the Raspberry Pi. I certainly can't do it as cleanly and as in one take as I did that Raspberry Pi 12 years ago. It's not 12, it's 10 years later, 2012 to 2022. This is the first interesting thing since the Raspberry Pi. Honestly, this is the first interesting thing going on in tech since the Raspberry Pi. The fact that Linux can work this way under Windows. The fact you can be doing this stuff under Windows natively, local on your machine. There's no cloud technology. It's not a virtual machine. It's containers. It's running on your hardware at a fairly low level. There's always some virtualization. You can't get away from it. But it's no more virtualization than the native Windows operating system is using. This makes it very significant. All right, so LXD console, accurate gecko. See if it does anything different. LXC, it's the command. LXC is the command. I hit enter again. It asks for the login. I'll try user Ubuntu and I'll try password blank. See if that works. Login incorrect. Oh, look at that. I probably shouldn't be showing that, whatever that is. I'll be changing my SSH keys at some point. Interesting. That was Control AD. Control AD, Control AQ. There. No, Control AQ. I don't even remember what it was saying to get out of it. Got to scroll that off the screen at any rate. I don't know if I'm going to edit it. Maximum tries exceeded, no problem. So what we need is a default username and password. If even that, it might be locked into requiring keys, right? You have to figure out how to get out of that. That was Control A something. Control AQ. I thought I was doing that. Control A, Q. Control A, Q. There it is. You have to let go on the Q. Now we can try sending a command over to this thing. We need to log in for the first time to LXC. That's LXC console login. Okay. Get the shell prompt of the container. We need a sudo here. Oh no, we don't worry. We are super user. Container name U1804 sudo login user username. Heal us. Is it going to use my name? I'm not sure. Unknown user. That's fine. Let's try user Ubuntu. Use the sudo command. Okay, so where am I not using sudo on this? Oh, it exited us out. Sudo su. Oh, I didn't need to use sudo here. Well, I didn't use sudo there. LXC exec u 1804 minus sudo login user Ubuntu. That's exactly what I did up here. So doing it again isn't necessarily going to be better. Maybe I take out this sudo command. To run a command as administrator, user root, use sudo command. Isn't that what I'm doing? Are the double minuses done wrong? See this this space here? I don't know, the API is the problem. Oh, there's an attach. Interesting. LXC start the container name, and then LXC attaching to it instead of the console command. That might be something. Let's try that. Because I don't have much faith in this. I just tried it and I don't get the API. LXC-start -n. It says one word. And then the parameter -n. And then the name U1804 -d. Command not start. Is it LXC start? Yeah, it's LXC start, not LXD start. Cannot be found. You can also use SSH commands. We've been trying that. This seems promising, except I don't know which user it's supposed to be for. LXC exec. Container, and then the passwd command. I mean, I at least understand what this is trying to do. Make sure I have the names right. LXC list. Oh wait, look at that. Now I don't have these snapshots anymore. Oh, is it because I became super user? No, they're not there anymore. That's so strange. I had them. Let's try creating them again. They were destroyed. They were supposed to be persistent. Okay, I'm getting so close. It seems like, you know, it might just be some learnings I need to do on my own. The big stuff is done. These latest problems are much less of problems than the ones I was encountering before. I have overcome so many obstacles, and it's almost there. And I need almost none of this stuff. All that's done. So it's close to this, but with 18.04. So LXD space launch. It's sudo LXD launch Ubuntu :1804, and then the name U1804, the same name as I used before, or is it? I don't even know. Failed to start. Oh, already running. LXD is already running. LXC, sudo LXC list. These are good errors. I'm a little mystified as to why they're not listing there. I thought how to check if system D is running. I think we don't need that anymore. Frequently asked questions here. We don't need that anymore. The general stuff about the overview of the projects, we don't need that. We don't need my blog anymore. This original intro is a bit old. I think what I really want is an LXD tutorial. Let's just see what's at the top of Google for this. Getting started, how to set up and use LXD on Ubuntu from DigitalOcean. You know, there's going to be a lot of familiar things here. The wizard. A lot of people talk about this stuff. See, it's really popular. It's this is going to become more and more mainstream and easier. You won't have to do this rabbit hole stuff. LXC list, isn't that what I was doing? Yeah, sudo LXC list. Let's try LXC list without sudo. Same thing. LXC launch. UB for the second one, UB 1804. No storage pool found. Very interesting. Create a new storage pool. It's acting like maybe the initialization stuff didn't work. Maybe something went wrong in the process. Let's plow through that. Let's make sure system D is still running. Oh, I wish I put that command in my tutorial here. Confirm that LXD. This is the URL for it. Can figure out how to test if systemd is running. This is actually the URL for it. Bring that one back. we'll take this first command, which was very useful. We'll actually run it. Make sure systemd actually is running. That's great. And I'll put it right beneath where this is, so it's always and forever in my journal. And knowing that it's running, we can once again sudo lxd init and just go through the process. Would you like clustering, default, 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 default. Oh, I did yes for that. The network bridge. I don't need the network bridge. Okay, anyway, we'll try this. Whatever. Take all the defaults. It couldn't hurt. Right, Charlie Brown? We detected that you're running inside an unprivileged container. This means that unless you manually configure your host otherwise, you will not have enough UIDs and GIDs to allocate your containers. LXD can reuse your container's own allocation. Would you like to have containers share their parents' allocation? Yes, fine. Available over the network, default. Cached images, default. LXD printed. And you know what? And LXD sudo LXD list. Yeah, already running. That's fine. Okay. So I can't even list them. Sudo LXC list. Sorry. There. And there don't appear to be any there. So we go back. So we go down to the setup that's going to inevitably be here for creating some. And there it says created. That means they showed the command up here to make one. I thought that's what I just did. I thought that's what that command was. LXC list. Columns, NS4. What the heck is that? Oh, it just tells the number of columns, but we're not getting it listed there. Where are my instances? Now there is this error here, failed to start the daemon, but that was from a list command. That was not from the from this stuff up here. It seems that the wizard went through just fine. LXC list not showing containers. I got tripped up by the same thing with my home lab in MAAS. Did you create the VM under a new project? When you run LXC, it'll default to the project default. LXC project list. Unknown command project for LXC. LXC help. Help. Make it smaller. LXC help. Pipe it to less. Alias cluster config console copy delete execute file help image info. Info might be interesting. Launch, list, move, network, operation, profile, publish, remote, rename, restart, restore, snapshot, start, stop, storage, and version. Okay. I'm going to go to another one here. LXC info. Sudo LXC info. Again with that showing the key stuff. Stupid. All right. This is about as far as I can mentally take this. I've gone quite a bit, and I have it running. I have LXD on my machine. I just need to get practice. I need to get better at it, right? So the final takeaways, it's less than satisfying. This is a real issue here and in life. What has occurred is that I have overcome big obstacles. System D is installed under WSL2, and so LXD installed 2. The LXD init process runs without errors. The API, the application program interface, I'm having difficulties with the steps following that. Charlie Brown kicked the football, but doesn't know how to play the game now. So really, it's a matter of me learning more. I need to put the time in on learning the LXC commands, and general API. That's where we are right now. Are there questions? Is this worth it for you folks following along? The payoff, the win, is going to be very big here, I promise. Once I have this running, I'll be able to show people how to get through it real quick. It's going to be improving. Microsoft has to improve this process because many people are going to want to run LXD under the Windows Subsystem for Linux. I am not in unique territory here. I am just, I am feeling the pain, the bleeding edge pain of early adopters. And that's all this is. I want to get it down to the minimal steps. I need to get it in my fingers. I need to understand the LXD commands, and it'll all come together, and I'll be able to show you all the wonderful things that come with having these little playgrounds here. Step 3, profit. And again, I assure you, this is in a way that's better than VirtualBox, because these are just like as if they were these, which is just like as if there was none of this. And that's what we're bringing you towards. That's what we're bringing you towards. We're bringing you towards unlimited propagation, ability to play around with, Linux. Generic tech, real technology literacy. And there you have it. So chime in with any of your questions if you got them, because I'm winding down now. I'm out of steam from a long day and running up against this, and then I'll be configuring this to be looking back more like my original terminal, fixing the colors and stuff. So the next time you see me, you won't know this 18.04 from 20.04, and I might even be running under an LXD container by that time. I'm not going to try and capture it all on the video. I just wanted to get all this kind of formative, how the sausage is made, and letting you see the running up against it backing off, turning, trying again. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again soon, and don't forget to subscribe.